So next up, we go from land management back to natural history, and I think we're going to get a talk about
Recording in progress.
we've got two seals from Prince William Sound online. We got Jen Belovarac and Savannah Costner and Halley Werner with the Alaska SeaLife Center. While they're coming on, I want to mention, someone mentioned earlier about what's called T-slip. And I just want to mention on June 3rd and 4th in Valdez, there's another workshop, and it's the Tsunami Vessel Response Workshop. It's a group put together by Brett Hidman, and I'm on the planning committee, a bunch of us talking about how vessels respond to tsunamis. So just throw that out there while I'm thinking about it. But here we have the Alaska SeaLife Center coming online.
Perfect. You guys should be able to see our PowerPoint presentation. And with that, I'm going to let Halley take it away.
All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Halley, and you just heard is Savannah. The two of us are going to be tag teaming in this presentation today from Seward. Unfortunately, we weren't able to join you in person, but we're so glad to be here. We work at the Alaska SeaLife Center here in Seward. We're both animal care specialists, and we focus in wildlife response and preventive care of marine animals. So, super excited to talk with you. We've had a lot of animals come through from the Prince William Sound area. A little bit about the Alaska SeaLife Center. We are the only marine mammal rescue and rehabilitation facility in the state of Alaska. We do hold permits and stranding agreements with National Marine Fisheries Service and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and these permits allow us to work with these protected species. So last year, 2023, presented a very long and busy stranding season for us. It began on January 30th with the admission of a young northern fur seal, which you can see in the top left photo here. And it ended on November 28th. And that's when we sent our third and final non-releasable sea otter pup to his new home. The last 4 months of care was pretty intensive because it required 24-hour care while we had a walrus calf and those 3 sea otter pups. Overall, our season consisted of the 1 fur seal, 10 harbor seal pups, a walrus calf, 3 northern fur seal pups, and a couple dozen birds that came through our doors. 2 of which were near and dear to our hearts, a couple of cute little goldeneye ducklings that lived here until they were mature enough to be released, and they were just super cute and fun. We do have a 24-hour stranding hotline, and on that hotline over the course of the year, we received 341 calls, and our team responded to over 100 cases. But today we're going to focus our presentation on harbor seals, and particularly we're going to highlight 2 young harbor seal patients from last summer that came to us from the Copper River Delta. So the first seal here that we're going to introduce you to is named Ruffles. Every year we have a naming theme, and last year was potatoes. So you can see where Ruffles comes in. At approximately 4 days of age, Ruffles was our first harbor seal admit of the season. She arrived to the SeaLife Center on May 21st. The story here was fishermen called our stranding hotline after finding this harbor seal pup kind of trying to climb up on their gear. When they called our hotline, we were able to get a photo from the fishermen, and through the photo and all the additional information and observations they gave us, we were able to assess the situation pretty well and feel confident that this animal needed help. The National Marine Fisheries Service approved the pickup of the seal for rehabilitation, and she was sent to the Alaska SeaLife Center. When she was admitted, she weighed 8 kilograms, which is pretty small for a newborn pup. She was dehydrated and underweight. She still had her umbilicus, which is what helped us to age her, and she was found to have a urinary tract infection once she was admitted. So she had some things going against her. Our next little guy here was named Spud, and he has a very similar story. He arrived at the SeaLife Center just 2 days later. He was a similar age, weight, and body condition at about 5 days old and 8.5 kilograms. And he also still had that umbilicus. To our surprise, we had a third seal that was found in the same predicament the same day as Spud. So that's 3 seals that were found within 2 days in the Copper River Delta, all very young, all still requiring care from mom. And so that was kind of strange. Why were they all kind of in the Delta at the same time? One theory that we've heard to explain what might have happened is some early ice breakup in the river, which might have caused the pups to wash down the river while mom left them as she was foraging. So that's kind of one guess, but really most of the time we don't know what happens to these kids before we get them. So once seals arrived to the SeaLife Center, they were given admit exams. And this is something that we do with every single animal that comes through our doors. During the exam, we're going to collect patient history. We're going to get morphometrics, so that's like a weight, a straight length, a girth, and then our veterinarian is going to do a full physical examination. They're going to look in the eyes, in the nose. They're going to feel their body for any wounds or any lumps or bumps or anything like that. And if any wounds are found, they're going to be shaved and cleaned with an antiseptic. And we'll also do the same if an umbilicus is still attached. We collect blood, and that helps us check for any infections, and it helps us learn how those internal organs are functioning. And then we collect fecal and urine samples. We take x-rays. These are all great diagnostic tools. Additionally, we collect swabs. We send those off for testing to look for underlying disease. So this is a lot of stuff. It's very, very thorough. And because of this, we often will break it up into a couple of different sessions just so we're not stressing the seal out too much. Once we do the immediately necessary diagnostics, so usually that's that physical exam, cleaning any wounds or umbies, and doing blood work, then our veterinarian's able to give us a treatment plan. So the treatment plan will often include a daily weight to monitor their growth, a regular taking of their temperature, because these guys are very compromised and can't always regulate their own body temperature. We need to help them with that. We'll continue treating the umbilicus and keep treating any wounds that have been found to keep those clean from infection. And we'll more often than not give them subcutaneous fluids to help with hydration. You can see that in the top photo there. We've got a team giving some fluids under the skin. And then on the bottom photo is a cute little seal getting weighed. The seals are often given antibiotics as well if they have an infection, and probiotics to help protect their gut health. It's a pretty long list of treatments when a seal first comes in. We want to make sure that we are addressing all of the issues that they're presenting. And as they grow and work through those issues, we want to take care of anything else that presents itself. So we will do routine vet exams and blood work throughout their stay. So in addition to that veterinary treatment plan, we also put each seal on a feeding plan, right? We want them to grow big and strong. We want to be able to release these seals. So this feeding plan will be specific to each animal. We want to provide the appropriate rate of growth and nutrition, and that depends on the age and the condition of the animal. So all harbor seals that aren't yet weaned will be tube fed. You can see that in that center photo there. We've got a tube that's inserted into the mouth to the stomach of the animal, and then a syringe filled, in this case, with aminoplex, which is like Gatorade for seals or animals, helps hydrate those seals. Once they're hydrated, then we can introduce formula that helps them put on some weight And once they graduate through formula, we can start giving them a fish mash to help them digest fish proteins before giving them an actual whole fish. So we have a pretty cool video on this slide here, which we're hoping will play for you. This is what we call fish school. And here you can see one of our patients last year chasing actually a live fish. And it's pretty cool because their instinct just kicks in and they essentially teach themselves how to eat fish. And that's perfect for us. These seals are usually weaned at 4 to 6 weeks old. They start eating fish and then we can really start fattening them up. And we do offer them live fish in this type of scenario as well as prior to release so that they can compete with each other and really prove to us that they're able to succeed when we release them. But the majority of their food when they're on fish will be frozen herring that we thaw out and feed to them whole. We also do provide some natural enrichment as much as we possibly can. So we'll use, in that photo, you can kind of see a green car wash strip. We call those kelp strips. We can put those in the pool with some fish inside little slats, and that will encourage foraging and more natural behavior. We also will just do scatter feeds with multiple seals in the pool so that they can compete for fish. And we want them to be foraging as naturally as possible and not relying on humans. And so not looking for humans to toss their fish into a pool or hand them a fish. Once the seals are healthy and eating fish on their own, then we start talking about release, which is super cool. That's what we're here for. We love these success stories when we get a young, sick, or injured animal and we're able to aid them in growing up and getting healthy and send them back out into the wild. So we need to take a lot of things into consideration when we are hoping to release an animal. So this is kind of our release criteria list. Are they able to forage and compete for food? Obviously, that's very important. Do they have any known communicable diseases? We don't want to put an animal back out that's going to get the rest of the population sick. Are they off all of their medications? We want that all flushed out of their body before they go back into the environment. And then we also want to make sure they have enough fat storage to allow them to adjust to their new home because they're here at the SeaLife Center in a very controlled environment. They're getting fish tossed to them or put into foraging devices throughout the day. And then they're going to be put into the ocean where they're going to have to find their own fish. There will not be any walls to contain that fish that they find. They're going to have to work for it. So we want to make sure they're nice and fat before they go out there. And now I'm going to pass it off to Savannah because this is the fun part and we always want to release these guys when we can.
Yeah, so both Spud and Ruffles were able to be released. They went through the entire rehabilitation process and then checked off all of those release criteria boxes. And so they were actually released on August 23rd in Blackstone Bay with the help of y'all's very own Lazy Charter Otters and the Kayak Chief crew. We invited guests out onto the boat to help offset the costs to get these animals released closer to where they were found, right? They came from the Copper River Delta, but we released them within kind of the closer to Whittier with Prince William Sound. But they were released in an area that was known to have harbor seals. And we have a fun video to show you guys. I really hope this plays. We want you guys to experience the joys of releases with us. And so this is actually their release story. And there's just a music overlay, so I kind of muted it. Our media team's really great at all of these like cinematic shots. So we're offloading the 3 kiddos, right? So we had Spud, Curly Fry, and Ruffles that were all released on the same day on August 23rd, right off Blackstone Bay Beach. here are our volunteers and our seasonal Emma getting ready to release them back out into the ocean. And the first one is Curly Fry. She was ready to go. And then that is Spud. Curly Fry looking around. And it was an absolutely incredible, gorgeous day. We are so thankful that Lazy Otter Charters allowed us to do this, to release these animals out closer to kind of their natural habitat rather than right out of Whittier. And so now that these pups are released, we do want to try to do post-release monitoring. So post-release monitoring is super important to let us know if what we are doing is actually helping these animals survive out in the wild. That is our whole purpose, is like we want a really healthy, robust harbor seal population. And honestly, wild harbor seal pups only have a 50% chance of making it to their first year of life. So we as rehabbers want to make sure that we're setting up these pups with the most success. So in the top right corner, we will flipper tag every single pup that we release out. It is a blue flipper tag that'll go in the interdigits on their hind flipper. And you can kind of see that kind of zoom in close up. If you're able to you see a seal, you see a flipper tag, and you're able to snap a picture of it, we would love to see that picture. Every animal has an identification number on that tag, so we can actually track it back and see which animal that is. And that will kind of let us know that that kiddo made it to at least, we'll try to guesstimate an age, but out there thriving. However, that's not really the best way to do post-release monitoring. The better way would be actually satellite tags. But unfortunately, they are very expensive, about $1,500 per tag. So it's few and far between that we're able to tag these pups. But what are they? We'll place a small little tracker on their back with an animal safe adhesive. And then when the antenna pops above the water, it'll send a ping to the satellites. And then that'll have a GPS coordinate associated with that. Ideally, it has the ability to last a full year if that glue holds against the corrosion of salt water. Salt water corrodes everything. But the tag will fall off when the seal molts in the fall, so they won't have it for its life. So we were actually able to put a sat tag on both Ruffles and Spud. And so in this first video, we are going to watch Spud. So this is the release site over in Blackstone Bay. They go up and around, down, off. I wish I knew Prince William Sound better to name all these islands, but you can see she kind of goes back to where the release site is, travels a little bit further down. It's actually published research out there suggesting that rehabilitated harbor seal pups travel more than their wild counterparts, just potentially in search of food and haul out space. However, those extreme travel distances typically show that they don't survive. So we're also gonna play a video of Spud, and you can see his video is zoomed out a little bit more because he travels a lot, all the way completely out of this Prince William Sound. However, there is slight hope for us that we're excited about in the fact that he kind of niches himself in this tiny little cove and then he stays there. And he just kind of pings around in that little cove. So we're hoping that that was a good sign. He found a nice space with plenty of food, plenty of haul out, but we just don't know just because of how much he traveled. Typically these satellite tags gave us about 3 months worth of data, and then they stopped pinging. Did the animals die? Did the tag fall off? We'll just never really know, but we always like to be hopeful for these animals, and it's kind of a fun exercise just to see where exactly they're going to. So now that these kiddos are out in the wild, we thought we would talk to you guys about harbor seal facts just in general. And so first and foremost, the Prince William Sound harbor seal stock is from Elizabeth Island all the way to Cape Fairweather. And the last study done in 2015 showed that there was around 44,000 harbor seals within that stock. And there are 12 identifiable harbor seal stocks within the state of Alaska. But right now, we're in the very beginning stages of pupping season, with several premature pups being spotted on beaches. You guys are kind of the first to know, but we have already gotten 2 Lanugo pups. Unfortunately, one did pass, and we do still have one in-house that I'm hoping I can switch the screens and show you a live video feed of her. She's currently napping. But harbor seal pups usually only birth 1 pup at a time. At birth, those harbor seals will weigh around 24 pounds, but they gain weight rapidly during this pupping season because mom's milk is super fatty, about 50%, and then of fat, and then around 9% protein. These animals are nursing throughout the day, usually about every 4 hours, but mom will leave their pups alone on the beach to go off and forage. If pup is able to keep up with mom and go swimming, then they will go with mom. Another super fun fact is that harbor seal pups can swim right away at birth. They're strong enough to kind of swim around in the water, and they don't have to birth out on land. And by the time that they're weaned from mom, which is around 4 to 6 weeks post-birth, they'll weigh around 24 kgs or close to 50 pounds. So this is a little ball of blubber, but that's important because mom, I'm not going to say harbor seal moms are awful moms, but they just leave pup. One day mom is there, next day mom's gone. And so they don't really teach their pup how to survive, how to fish, how to do what it is that you need to do to be a harbor seal. So a lot of times weaning harbor seals will be out on beaches, kind of trying to figure out life. But this photo in here is what we all want to see, is a fat harbor seal pup with its mom. But things can and will go wrong. So young pups will be separated from mom, and that's not just to say like on their foraging trips, they'll be separated for short periods of time, but when mom doesn't come back after a tide cycle, that's when we start to worry. So big storms can interrupt where mom and pup are. It's the wild. Mom can be predated upon. And sometimes moms are just young, they're inexperienced, they just don't know what to do. And so the pups will get separated that way. There's also, as I'd mentioned earlier, premature pups. Sometimes pups will arrive earlier than expected. And in this top right photo, you can see that is what a premature pup looks like. We can tell what a premature pup looks like because it has this white fluffy coats that harbor seals typically shed in utero. They should come out with all of these spots like all of the other pictures have, and this kiddo just has spots on his face, so we know that it's premature. And harbor seal moms, they have some awesome like innate ability to be able to detect if some of their pups have some birth or developmental defects. And rather than putting all this energy into caring for a pup that probably won't make it, they will just abandon the pup. And of course, there's always the unfortunate component to this, that human interaction is a reason that harbor seals will get separated, whether that's dogs, boats, people being well-meaning and just picking them up off of the beach. Humans do play a part in how pups come to us. So those are kind of the younger pups. But we at the SeaLife Center also get a second wave. So we have our pups that were separated from mom, and then around 4 to 6 weeks after, typically in July, we'll get kiddos who just didn't figure out how to be a seal. So whether that's they couldn't find enough food source where they were at, they were inexperienced in how to hunt because it's a wide world out there, and or maybe they were hauled out on a beach and eagle or another animal was trying to predate upon them or scavenge on them, and so they have all these wounds, or sometimes they just have a disease or an infection that their body just can't overcome, especially if they don't have mom helping to take care of them. So then where do you guys come into play? How can you guys help us care for these animals? First and foremost, if you see a harbor seal or a harbor seal pup out in the wild, please give it space. If mom senses any danger, she won't return to her pup. Just like mom sense like if it has a birth defect, it'll leave it. Like if mom thinks that this is going to cause too much of an energetic like deficiency for her, she's just going to leave. So please, please, please always give harbor seal pups some space. And if a good way to kind of think about it is if a seal detects your presence, you're way too close. That seal should not be looking at you, moving away from you, or anything like that. We kind of like to call it observance without disturbance. But if you do see these harbor seals out there and some pups, these are some things that you guys can be thinking about while you're looking at it. Do you see any blood? What does the fur look like? Is it kind of matted, looks gross? Does it have that white coat that it's a lanugo kiddo? And does it have an umbilicus? Actually, I'm going to go back to this previous slide. So in this harbor seal right here, I don't know if you guys can see that, but there is this pink little stump coming out of its body. That's not its intestines. That's actually the umbilical cord. So where it was connected to mom in utero. They'll have that for about the first week of life, but this kiddo that is super fresh, this animal should be with mom when it is that pink and like that thickened. So looking for the umbie stump, how big is the seal? Is it a house cat? Is it a beagle sized? How's it behaving? Is it super down and out? Doesn't look like it's looking around or anything? Does it look like it's breathing really fast? Or is it just out sunning itself on the rocks waiting for mom to come back? Is it vocal? Harbor seal pups will vocalize in kind of a way to be like, Mom, I'm here, Mom. So is it looking for mom? And are there any other seals nearby? This is a big one. So a lot of times when we see a seal pup out on the beach, we'll have our callers kind of say, can you scan the horizon for a second and see if you see any seal heads pop up out of the water? Because that could potentially be mom. And of course, always, 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 please take photos from a distance. And please, 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 please give us a call. If you have any concerns about any animals, we run a 24/7 hotline. That is a direct number to our hotline. And we will walk you through all of these questions. We'll kind of see if you can send those photos, send those videos. We know it's kind of hard when there's no phone service, but photos really help us kind of understand the better picture of what's going on. And we really look at these kind of tiny, minute details if we're able to. And with that, I just want to give a big thank you to the Cordova Wildlife Troopers for helping bring Ruffles and Spuds to Cordova to get on a flight to us. And of course, Lazy Otter Charters, as well as NOAA for helping us to do the work that we do. We are so thankful for all of you. And we are able to take some questions, but I just want to throw it out there. Our number is on the screen right now. Please use this time to put it in your phones. So if you're out and about enjoying the lovely Prince William Sound this summer and you see an animal that you're concerned about, you can give us a call. Thanks. Great question. We try really, really hard to get them not to habituate to us or get used to human presence. So anytime we are working around these animals, we keep our talking to an absolute minimum. We don't want them kind of getting used to these human voices. When they move on to whole fish, we are tossing fish behind a barrier so they can't really see us. And then we're peeking through little slots to see if they're eating. And then a lot of times we're able to put harbor seals together from the same geographical location. If we're able to do that, then they kind of have this cohort and to interact with conspecifics that kind of helps them realize like, oh, I'm a seal. Like I don't need to pay attention to these humans, these people, but we are very, very mindful of making sure that these animals stay wild because we want them to stay wild. Right now she is sleeping. Sorry for the camera quality. It's one of our worst cameras, but this is why we couldn't make it to Whittier today. We had to stay on site to help feed her, and it is noon, and she's ready for lunch. So thank you guys so much for having us.
And speaking of lunch, we got half more hour, then we'll have lunch.